are being introduced basically right now with what the Movement Charter Drafting Committee is drafting and writing. And these are the players and entities we are going to talk about, because you can already prepare yourself for some interactive group work. And we are going to talk about them later. And Nora is talking about how we are going to do this.
So for the upcoming group work, we've picked 3 areas of interest that will affect your work in the movement directly. So we will discuss in a minute about decision-making regarding to number 1, money, meaning how are funds raised and how are they distributed. The second area is technology and projects, and the third area is affiliation and hubs. So you will choose the area of decision-making you're interested in, and let's make sure that all groups are more or less of the same size. Each group will discuss 3 concrete examples of decisions made in that area that affect the whole movement. During the conversation, keep in mind the different players that Nicole just mentioned. So the Wikimedia Foundation, the community, hubs, affiliates, and the Global Council. We encourage you to share your thoughts and be open, and don't be afraid to disagree. We will actually also take notes on Etherpad, so we will appoint 1 note taker for each group. And for the wrap-up session, we will also need 1 person highlighting the main points afterwards. As my background is in fundraising, I'm happy to facilitate the group regarding money. And we have come up with 3 examples of questions we're discussing. So the first question is, imagine you're a Wikimedia chapter and you need an annual grant of $150,000 to pay your first staff and plan things for the upcoming year. So who should decide if your proposal gets funding, and why should they decide this? This is the first question, and oops, forgot. No, this is actually the one, the correct side. The second question is, who should be able to do banner fundraising and why? And the third question we will be discussing is, who decides the criteria to raise funds with the Wikimedia trademark? Then there is a group of technology and projects facilitated by Alice.
So with me, you can discuss the questions: who should define technical development areas or priorities for the movement. To be a bit more concrete on this one, it is about, for example, who decides if fixing commons should become a priority for the Wikimedia Foundation or not. Who should make this decision? Currently, this is decided by the WMF after consulting with communities and affiliates. And I do think that it's worth talking about that. We have 2 other questions as well, which is who should set standards for and approve sister projects, and the question about language projects, also who is responsible for that.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have affiliation and hubs. We also have 3 questions here, and the first is, who should recognize and de-recognize affiliates? As an example, if you would like to start a new chapter, who should decide that you can do that, and also who gives you, can decide where to get the necessary support? And then also, who should be able to decide if you don't, I don't know, play by the rules, if you get de-recognized? Currently, this is basically the AFCOM, which is a board, the affiliations committee. Yes, Wojciech, we have you as an AFCOM member over there, at the end of the room. They recognize user groups, and the Wikimedia Foundation board recognizes chapters and thematic organizations after consulting, of course, with the AFCOM. And the AFCOM also advises the Wikimedia Foundation Board on derecognition of affiliates. We also have two other questions. Who decides the conditions for HARPs to be recognized? Are they any different from affiliates, for example? And then also, who can decide what a HARP should be actually working on? And now, yeah, see you in 30 minutes. Okay, goodbye. No, we would like to divide you in these three groups. Okay, let's not share the highlight. I'm going to put the groups up here again. We have printouts also for each group so that you can read all the questions again, and you can also, if you find one question so interesting, spend the whole half hour on one question. The important thing is, as Nora said, please, we will go with you into the groups, and we need one scribe to take note on the Etherpad. The links are also on the links printout. And also we need someone to report back to the larger group, because we want to come back together in this large group to share highlights and what we agreed on, probably also even disagreed on. So a highlight can also be something that you couldn't come to an agreement on. Is it clear? Like, does anyone have questions? Do you already know which group you want to go in? Shall we just start? So I would just say, okay, Alice is group 2, technology and project, that's over there. Nora is going to be here with group 1, money, and I'm going to the back to talk about affiliates and HARPs. Okay.
I can remember coming to make or break, you know, in jazz, and saying to myself, now how should I attack this practical problem of becoming a jazz musician as making a living and so on. And I said, well, ultimately I came to the conclusion that all I must do is take care of the music. And if I really do that, somebody's going to come and open the door of the closet and say, hey, we're looking for you.
My mic on again? Yes. Please come back to the front of the room. It's great to see the fruitful discussion still going on. I hope this was a good kickoff to kickstart all these conversations for the next days. But we would like to hear from each group now what their highlights were. You can, as I said, you can share a highlight, but you can also share what you disagreed or agreed on, or one burning question that you would like to give back to the group for the whole week and weekend. And we are going to start with the money group. Always money first.
2 more hours.
You have like, I don't know, what time is it?
2 minutes? 2 minutes is sufficient.
2 minutes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, money, money, money must be funny in a wiki world. And it has been. So I'm Capucine Marat, I'm the chair of Wikimedia France, and I will share for the group one for money. We started with a brilliant case of a chapter seeking new funds, but actually it seems that the point that was experienced the most by the people in the room was when you need more funds at the chapter or as a Wikimedia organization, and then you're blocked, and it's a bit complicated. We, of course, spoke of the FDC, which existed before the Funds Dissemination Committee. Words have been used, such as bureaucratic, globalized, volunteer-led, and I say them without any mark of approval or erasure. We proposed different solutions. There was a seeking for alternatives and not depend on a single fund. For example, we spoke of a possibility of either requesting money from a global fund, mostly for big organizations, for regional funds, maybe linked to hubs, and potentially for specific bias tackling funds aiming at a specific fight. So that's it for how we should decide on the money. Of course, more precisions on the pads that I encourage you to read. We, of course, after that spoke of the banner and who should be able to run the banner. And points were made from quite big chapters, notably Wikimedia France and Wikimedia Canada, that chapters like this should be able to run the banner because to better take into account the fiscal advantage in these countries and avoid confusion, but also to fit and have some cultural adequation to the Wikipedia public in these countries. We have a very interesting perspective from the movement charter saying, okay, you big chapters think like that, but we have different needs for smaller chapters, for example, because yes, fundraising is difficult, and some would like to Wikimedia Foundation to keep the machine running, but also potentially hubs. Thank you.
Thanks, Capucine. And now who is reporting back from the technology group? Please.
Good morning, everyone. So we're group 2. So our first question was who should define the technical development areas or priorities for the movement. So currently the board ratifies, but it's not advising on the priorities and the technical movements. Other affiliates also have their own say in the projects. For example, Wikidata does a lot of the development by Wiki Deutschland, and for example, the education program does a lot for the event dashboard. So there's a whole bunch of different actors that are in play in terms of technical development. We noticed there's a little bit of a dissonance between whether the community wish list survey is a good model of democracy. We understand that a lot of people vote on a project. It means that there's a lot of interest. But at the same time, not every project is as large as Commons or Wikipedia, so a lot of the smaller projects, they would never be able to get sufficient number of votes to have their wish list ever populate to the top. So that kind of like brings in the question of equality versus equity. So that was one of the example, is that the process done by the community feels more equality than true actual equity. And there's also a trade-off between legitimacy of the volunteer editors and having experts that make the decisions. Our second question was who should set the standard and approve sister projects? So again, currently this is done by the foundation. And new projects in the past have generally presented to the board because it caught the interest of one of the existing board members at the time. So that's how the projects were proposed. And one of the examples is actually from my own project, which is WikiJournal. The process is kind of broken because we are already stuck in the proposal stage for 4 years without any formal approval by the board. And we noticed that because new sister projects are proposed every 5 years or even longer, so there's not really like a core committee compared to language committee that approves new language being built, because those are usually have several within a year. And who should decide on shutting down the projects? This was raised by one of our group participants because they don't want to approve new projects because they fear that once it's created, you cannot shut it down because the process is very onerous or even near impossible to shut it down. So it was suggested to try out a project before approving anything, kind of like finding a testing ground to ensure there's sufficient editors, there's no spams lingering around, and the commitment. It's there before it's being approved. Oh, okay, thanks. And I'll quickly go to the last one. So who should set the standard in approving language projects? As I said, it's done primarily by the language committee and then presented to the board. And only very small amount of people knows the actual decision process. So we think that there should be a little bit better advertising about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now the last group, affiliation and hubs. Remy, thank you. 1.5 minutes.
Okay. All right, so for the affiliation and hubs group, first of all, we talk a lot about the actual situation. And that's now, I'm struggling with the computer, sorry. But now that we are okay, that there are a lot of inefficiencies in the system, it's always complicated to understand why an affiliate is recognized and another could be derecognized. Now there are some support from the AFCOM to conflict resolution, but still could have improvement for the future year. We all agree that to start a new chapter and get the necessary support, the AFCOM still be the perfect partner to another new organization to provide documentation and support and talk with the Global Council, because we all agree that the Global Council should be the new organization who could recognize and derecognize affiliates. We also talk about hubs, and we agree that they should have the same process, same way for hubs to affiliate. That's also on the role of the Global Council to recognize hubs, but to define what hubs should working on, what the topics of a hub, it should rest on the responsibility of the affiliates or members of this hub to decide what is useful for them, first of all. I think I told everything. Yeah?
Who should decide what they will do?
Yeah, and on this subject, it's we talk about that it's a member of hubs who decide what hubs will do. Yeah. Okay. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you everyone for the conversation. I think we could have like 3 hours for this to talk about everything. So, but we have the whole week ahead of us, and Of course, it doesn't end here. It basically just starts. So what are the next steps? I mean, first of all, who hasn't done it yet, please go ahead and review and comment on the movement charter draft, and also look at the talk pages. There are already a couple of interesting feedbacks that you can also engage with. Then also go to the governance sessions at Wikimania, what you already did, but please keep on doing so. There will be a next session here about this as well. And then also a quick advertisement for the affiliates who are eligible. Please come to the Summit, Wikimedia Summit online engagement sessions. If you haven't registered yet, and we have a couple of affiliates who haven't registered yet, please do so. We extended the deadline until after Wikimania, so you can still have a chance to participate in the Wikimedia Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.